Today we're gonna fix a little problem that we made a few years ago. Hey guys, welcome back to Horticulture Geek. I'm Ray. Thank you so much for joining me today on this bright, sunny afternoon. But we're gonna have to deal with the sunlight today because the project we're working on is right here behind me in my raised bed. And we are fixing a mistake. When I put this raised bed in, I used non-pressure treated lumber to build my raised beds. There's nothing wrong with it, but if you do use non-pressure treated lumber, then you will expect that your beds will break down and rot away much quicker. And that's the situation that I have run into. And so I have to replace some boards on my raised bed. Not every board has completely rotted out, but all of the boards on the front had completely rotted out. So I have had to come in, and I got a mess going here, but we'll just look. I've replaced all of the boards on the front, and I've got the boards left on the back, the original ones. And I am going back in with pressure treated. And before you comment or raise questions, modern day pressure treated lumber is not treated with harsh chemicals that leach out into the soil, such as arsenic and all those things. It's a completely different process now. The lumber industry went through governmental regulations that required those toxic chemicals to be removed. Now, if you're getting your lumber sourced from an international source, it may still have toxic chemicals in it, but here in central Arkansas, this lumber is sourced from local manufacturers and distributors, so it is good to go. Now, but you do your own research and you do whatever your comfort level is. I don't want this video to be a pro pressure treated or anti pressure treated video. That is not the point of this today. I'm just simply telling you what I have done. And so if you are more comfortable with going with the non-pressure treated, just so you can ensure there's nothing in your wood, please go the non-pressure treated route. If you are comfortable using pressure treated and trusting that it comes from a good source, that is not using harsh chemicals, then please use pressure treated. The choice is yours. Do whatever your comfort level allows. But it was time. And so right up here at the front of this bed, I'm at the base of my driveway. And so whenever it rains, the water runs down the driveway, and it was hitting this raised bed. And so this poor side of the raised beds was getting water from the front and the back, and it just got too saturated. It stayed too wet too long, and so it had to be replaced. So that's what I have come through and done. And so this is something that many gardeners are going to have to face. I know lots of gardeners now try to avoid this issue altogether, and they go in with like the corrugated metal, like Jess and Jeremiah out at Roots and Refuge. They have the metal beds that are then, the supports are wood, but their actual beds are the corrugated metal. So if you have the resources, the capability to use those products, hey, go for it. Cinder blocks work well, regardless. So this is where we're at today, and I've got this done. And I did not film any of the replacing the wood here on the raised bed, simply because once you've seen somebody cut wood before, you know, it is what it is. And I did not change the shape of this bed. We simply just refronted the bed with the new wood, and we came in and put in new supports. Because this is a 20-foot long raised bed. And so I do have 3 sections. Now, there's some other issues that are going on with this bed. The other issue happens to be right there above me, you can see. That is an oak tree, and it is forever casting acorns down, and they rain into this bed. So I have had to construct a soil sifter, and I did that just with 2x4s and a piece of hardware cloth. And so I'm going to be sifting out the soil today to get all those acorns and trash out of my soil, because they constantly sprout and become a invasive weed almost. The baby oak trees become invasive weeds in this raised bed. And as those acorns send out their tap roots and develop, they're stealing nutrients that I'm amending into this bed, and they're taking those nutrients away from my crops. So I'm going to be sifting that out today and trying to get a lot of that trash out of my soil. And then the third issue that we're having here with this bed, which again can be very common for lots of gardeners, and if it's not a common problem for you, God bless you. Hey, I wish I could be more like you. But unfortunately, we have some digging critters here. And it may be mice, it may be chipmunks, it might be moles or voles. There are lots of things that can attack raised beds, because all those things like to burrow up into the soil and eat your crops from the roots out. And I'm having those issues. I'm pretty sure with me, I've pretty much identified it as mice and chipmunks doing that for my raised beds. So what I am doing, let me grab it real quick, hang on. Okay, I flipped the camera around so you guys can see. I am adding a hardware cloth barrier into my raised beds. So you can see I've already got a piece laid out here, and I've got my staple gun ready. We're going to start attaching this to the wood. And all this is a standard roll of hardware cloth that I picked up at my local big box store. It was relatively inexpensive. It was under 20, it may have been, yeah, I think it was under $20 for a roll. And it's going to take 3 rolls of this, what I got. It's going to take 3 rolls because of the way you have to cut it at the ends to wrap up. You see how we're wrapping up the inside? And again, for my specific bed, because I have these supports, there's one there and there's one there. So I'm going to do a section of hardware cloth here, a section of hardware cloth here, and a section of hardware cloth here to cover my entire bed. So working with this stuff though is pretty simple once you have it unrolled. So you can do this if you're in the building stages, like maybe you're just now building a raised bed, or maybe you're having the issues that I've been having and you want to retrofit your raised beds to include this. It's pretty simple. So like I said, all I have done here is rolled this out, and I have just come through and bent the wire to manipulate it and form it to my trough. And so now all I have to do is bring my staple gun and come around and pop some staples in all along. And sometimes you have to push really hard and get those staples in there. And then once I have this done, that is going to be my barrier. Now you'll notice I'm using a hardware cloth with a good size hole here. Because you want to be able to have earthworms move freely through the soil. You want to have water move freely through the soil. You just want to create a barrier that mice or chipmunks or moles or voles can't get through. So I find this small pattern here is good. They make smaller and they make much bigger openings. I wouldn't go much bigger than this. You could go smaller if you wanted to, but it's really not necessary. So this again is the 1/2 inch mesh opening, and I think this is going to work really, really well for our purposes here. So now I'm at the stage where I've got to finish attaching this, and then the soil I dug out from here, I've got piled here. So I've got to then sift that soil back into this bed, and I've got amendments ready to go into this bed as well. And I actually have a whole crop of English peas that I pre-seeded that are ready to go, and they'll grow up this trellis. So we've got some work to do. So let me set the camera up and let you see a little bit of me putting this together, and I'll be back to chat with you in just a minute. Alrighty, I wanted to show you, after doing a little sifting, what I'm left with. So you can see there's acorns all in here. There's old tree roots, old plant roots. I mean, some of this stuff would have eventually broken down and may have added to my soil. But since I'm in the process of, you know, getting all this trash out anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and just lose all of this and throw it away in my bucket. But it is surprising how much stuff you can sift out of your soil. And you can see wood chips in here. And that's okay. Like I said, they would have eventually broken down, but it's fine. I'm gonna just go ahead and get all this bulky trash out so that I can have good fresh soil to go. And then looky what I'm left with. Beautiful, sifted, light, fluffy, wonderful soil that the plants are just absolutely gonna love. The roots are gonna have no problem growing through it, and the critters won't be able to burrow up into it because of my wire mesh. All right, I moved over to a shady spot on the porch next to my potting bench here to finish out this video where it's a little easier to see me. I know that sun was awful glaring, but you know, it's a project that I needed to work on today, and I felt like I wanted to bring you guys along because a lot of gardeners do face the issue of having raised beds that fall apart or critters burrowing up in them, something like that. So I hope this video has been useful to you. You know, maybe we've answered some questions about what products you can and can't use. And again, do your own research and figure out what your comfort level is as far as the products you use to construct your raised beds. Because in gardening, that's what it's all about. It's about what you like. We each get to tailor our own gardens to ourselves. You know, it's a quilter making a quilt. They pick out the fabric, they pick out the patterns. That's the same thing in gardening. The possibilities are endless. The opportunities that you have are abundant. So that's one of the things I like about gardening. And this is just one of those things where every gardener is going to have to decide for themselves, based on their own time and research, what products they're comfortable with in their garden. You know, it's same as chemicals, same as herbicides. Some gardeners absolutely refuse to use synthetic chemicals such as pesticides or herbicides in their gardens. They only use organic. Some gardeners don't worry about being organic. They go ahead and use the synthetic chemicals. So it's all about you and your comfort level. And again, you know, I didn't want this to be a debate about pressure treated or non-pressure treated, because everybody has their own opinions and thoughts about it. But just do what's comfortable to you. And like with my bed here, you know, I knew, because that bed was only 2 years old. So in 2 years, that whole front of that 20-foot bed had rotted out for me. I knew that I did not want to replace that bed within another year or two again. So I personally have chosen to go back in with the pressure treated. It was a simple process. Popped out some screws. You know, if you build your raised beds the right way, make sure that however you construct your raised beds, to put your attachment hardware, your screws or nails or whatever, I would recommend screws, on the outside, so that in the event that you do have a board rot or break, you don't have to dig down inside your bed to undo your bed. You can just unscrew the board right from the face, pop it off, pop on a new one, and hopefully if your soil is settled enough, it'll hold shape, it'll hold form. So it should be an okay thing to happen. And then like that hardware cloth, you know, there's lots of different options out there on the market. I know some people use landscape fabric. Some people go in with fresh layers of cardboard periodically. Cardboard obviously is going to rot and break down much quicker than a hardware cloth or a landscape fabric. So, but you know, if you live in an area, or if your particular garden doesn't deal with predators coming up, you know, things coming up from underneath, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you live in an area, maybe you're thinking about building a bed, and you've got mole holes or mole tunnels all through your yard, or vole tunnels, maybe you see mice running around, maybe you see chipmunks running around. If you know you have those things on your property, I would recommend go ahead and plan to protect your beds on the front end. If you're like me and you constructed your beds and then wished you had, and you're gonna have to go back, then just go back. You're gonna have to dig your beds out like I did, add that hardware cloth in, retrofit it, make it work. It can be done. It is just time, labor, energy. That's what you're going to be faced with to fix it. It is much easier to do it on the front end. So if you have that opportunity to do it on the front end, go ahead and do it. But I've got a lot of work to do. Obviously, I didn't let you watch me sift out all that soil because, come on, who wants to really see that, right? But you get the idea. So I've got a lot of work ahead of me. I've got to fill that section up with soil and then dig out my next section and move on to get the hardware cloth and soil sifted through there. So this is going to be a lengthy process, but it's a process I'm willing to do because I've got to protect my crops. And speaking of crops, this is my peas right here I thought I'd show you. So these are the peas we sprouted the other day. These are English peas. And as you can tell, they are extremely ready to come out of their starter cells. So I've got to get that bed done, and I've got to get these guys planted because they are ready to hook onto that trellis and take off, and we will have a English pea harvest here before we know it. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Maybe it has inspired you or got you thinking about something to do in your own garden. That is always my goal here at Horticulture Geek. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you do comment down below on the whole pressure treated versus non-pressure treated, all I ask is to be civil. I want this community to be a encouraging community, a helpful community, not a discouraging or shaming community. And I know on other YouTube channels or other garden blogs that I follow, this is a debate, and some people can get very passionate on either side of the fence, and I just don't necessarily want that to happen here in the Horticulture Geek community. So please, 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 if you're passionate about one side or the other, please throw it out there in the comments, but don't be ugly or hateful to others. That's all I ask, because in the end, we all garden to relieve our stress and to see the promise of something beautiful new grow, and we don't want to ruin that by being harsh with one another. So guys, that's it for me today. This video has been a little more lengthy than I wanted, but I do hope you've enjoyed it. And until next time, from my garden to yours, I wish you all the best and happy gardening.